The Prime Minister needs to end this shambles. So can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax threshold?
Keir Starmer just lost it on live television. The Prime Minister got caught red-handed lying about his budget promises. Kemi Badenoch backed him into a corner he couldn't escape. The entire Parliament watched him melt down in real time. And what happened next will shock you. This isn't spin. This is the Prime Minister getting destroyed with his own words. Let's break it all down. Parliament was packed yesterday. Everyone knew something big was coming. The budget drops next week. But here's the problem. The whole thing already leaked to the newspapers. Every major policy, every tax change, every broken promise, all over the front pages before the official announcement. Kemi Badenoch stood up with one mission: expose the lies, hold Starmer accountable, make him answer for the chaos his government created. She opened with a question that cut straight to the heart of the scandal. Why is this government the first in British history to float increasing income tax rates, only to U-turn on it after the budget? Think about that for a second. They leaked plans to raise income tax. The public went ballistic. Markets got nervous, then they reversed course. All this happened before they even delivered the official budget. This is amateur hour governance. Starmer's response, pure deflection. He corrected her on timing like that mattered. The budget is next week, not after, he said, missing the entire point of her question. Then he launched into his standard talking points: Labour values, cutting NHS waiting lists, cutting debt, cutting cost of living. He threw out numbers. Inflation down this morning. Bank of England upgraded growth. Record £230 billion of investment.
But I can tell her it'll be a Labour budget, Mr. Speaker, with Labour values. That means we will concentrate on cutting NHS waiting lists, cutting debt and cutting the cost of living. And because of the decisions we've already made, inflation is down this morning. The Bank of England have upgraded growth. We've got a record £230 billion of investment into this country under this government.
Notice what he didn't do? He didn't answer the actual question. Why did you leak a tax increase plan, then immediately abandon it? Radio silence on that. Badenoch wasn't having it. She fired back immediately. Mr. Speaker, he says the budget is next week, but we read all about it in the papers. This is the first budget to unravel before it's even been delivered. She called out the Chancellor's cluelessness, said it's damaging the economy. Then, she asked the question that would haunt Starmer for the rest of the session. Can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax thresholds? Starmer refused to answer directly. Again, he said they'll lay out their plans next week, then pivoted to attacking conservative economic policies, talked about austerity, mentioned Liz Truss and her disastrous mini-budget, accused Badenoch of planning £47 billion in cuts with no detail.
Mr. Speaker, he says the budget is next week, but we read all about it in the papers. This is the first budget to unravel before it's even been delivered. The Chancellor's cluelessness, I'm afraid, is damaging the economy now. The Prime Minister needs to end this shambles. So can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax thresholds?
Mr. Speaker, the budget is 1 week today and we will lay out our plans. But what we won't do, Mr. Speaker, I've said what we will do in terms of protecting the NHS and public services. What we won't do is inflict austerity on the country as they did. It's caused huge. What we won't do is inflict a borrowing spree like Liz Truss did, also inflicted and did huge damage. Mr. Speaker, have they learnt anything? She's apparently got a golden economic rule, I think. So it's a very important rule, this golden rule. That there's this £47 billion of cuts with no detail.
Classic political dodge. When you can't defend your own position, attack your opponent's past. But Badenoch had done her homework. She came prepared with ammunition that would blow this wide open. Here's where it gets absolutely devastating. Badenoch pointed out they didn't get a clear answer. Translation: Starmer just confirmed through his silence that they're freezing thresholds. Then she dropped the bomb. Last year, during her budget speech, the Chancellor stood on the floor of Parliament and made a crystal clear promise. Let me read you the exact quote. I am keeping every single promise on tax that I made in our manifesto, so there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds. No extension of the freeze. Those were her words. On the record, in Parliament, during an official budget speech. Not a casual comment, not an offhand remark. A deliberate statement of government policy. Badenoch looked directly at Starmer and asked the killer question. Why was freezing thresholds a breach of the manifesto last year, but it isn't this year? The Prime Minister had no good answer. He accused Badenoch of speculation and distortion, said she does this every week. Then he tried to change the subject to economic growth statistics. Fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of the year, he claimed. 5 million extra NHS appointments in Labour's first year, but he wouldn't address the contradiction.
Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear that they are going to freeze thresholds. We didn't get a clear answer from them, but this is really important. Because in her budget speech last year, the Chancellor said, and I quote, "I am keeping every single promise on tax that I made in our manifesto. So there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds." Why was freezing thresholds a breach of the manifesto last year, but it isn't this year?
Mr. Speaker, every week she comes along and speculates and distorts. Last year, Mr. Speaker, last year they predicted recession. And what did we get? The fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of the year. They opposed NHS investment, and what do we get? 5 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government.
Why call threshold freezes a manifesto breach last year, then do exactly that now? Badenoch fired back. His government has been speculating every day for 3 months. Different ministers floating different policies, creating chaos. Inflation nearly doubled since Labour took office. Food inflation up 4.9%, making families miserable. The Chancellor made that promise on the floor of this House. A deliberate government policy statement. If she breaks such a clear promise, how can the public trust anything next week? Starmer's frustration showed. He talked about 11% inflation under Conservatives, listed his wins. Inflation down, wages up, 5 interest rate cuts. Then he attacked Badenoch personally. Treasury Minister during the worst living standards decline brought up Liz Truss. She said the mini-budget was 100% right. Classic deflection. Can't defend broken promises. Attack your opponent's past. Badenoch stayed focused. She was Treasury Minister during the pandemic. We cleaned up that mess. Maybe he could clean up his own. Then she repeated last year's quote, "I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips. Yet that's what they're planning next week." Then, real consequences. ExxonMobil's UK chair warned, "The government needs to understand that the whole industrial base of the UK is at risk unless they wake up and realize the damage their economic policies are doing." Britain's largest energy companies sounding alarms. Is UK Industries lost the price for a clueless Chancellor? Starmer unraveled. Defended Exxon. 6 months of meetings. Company losing £1 million weekly. "It's best to do the detail before you chant her," he snapped.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us, is the loss of UK industry the price the country has to pay for having a clueless Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, let me just say about ExxonMobil, it is a difficult time for the workforce there, and we must focus on supporting them. We've been meeting the company for over 6 months and explored every possible reasonable avenue. They've been facing losses for the last 5 years. It's best to do the detail before you chunter.
You could hear the irritation in his voice, the frustration bleeding through. He was losing control of the narrative. Then he went on the offensive against Badenoch's record, accused her of following reform, following the man who wants her job, called her the trade secretary that didn't sign any trade deals, cheerleader for the mini-budget, cheerleader for open borders. When they were crashing the economy and running down the NHS, she was right at the center. His final verdict: she hasn't got an ounce of credibility. A Prime Minister in full defensive mode, throwing everything at the wall hoping something would stick. But Badenoch wasn't finished. She brought up the energy roundtable she held last week. What energy companies said about this Prime Minister is unprintable. They are absolutely furious. Our oil and gas industry is dying, and he's standing there saying he had meetings. Then she laid out the real damage. Budget chaos is causing real anxiety. People aren't buying houses, businesses aren't hiring, investment decisions cancelled. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor blamed everyone else for raising income tax. Last week, she U-turned on her own U-turn. Now they're freezing income tax thresholds. Something she called a manifesto breach last year. Her final question cut deep. Doesn't the country deserve better than government by guesswork? Starmer's response showed desperation. Either renew with Labour or go back to austerity, he said. Listed Conservative failures, accused Badenoch of talking down the country. His final line, a Britain built for all.
They are making it up as they go along. Doesn't the country deserve better than government by guesswork?
Mr. Speaker, either we renew our country with Labour or we go back to austerity 2.0 with reform of the Tories. They left waiting lists at record highs. Almost 1 million more children in poverty, and they wrecked our public services. She comes here to talk down the country. We're turning the page. More NHS appointments, free breakfast clubs, free childcare, more homes and better public services. That's what we're fighting for, a Britain built for all.
But here's what everyone noticed. He never answered the central question. Why is freezing income tax thresholds a manifesto breach when the Conservatives do it, but perfectly fine when Labour does it? He never explained why his Chancellor promised one thing last year and is doing the exact opposite this year. He never addressed how the public can trust government promises when they change based on political convenience. Here's what just happened. Labour promised not to freeze income tax thresholds. They called it a manifesto breach. The Chancellor said it would hurt working people and take money from their pay slips. Now they're doing exactly that. When asked directly, Starmer refused to answer. He deflected, he attacked, he blamed everyone else. His silence confirmed everything. This is a stealth tax hike disguised as keeping promises. Businesses are cancelling investments. ExxonMobil warned the UK's entire industrial base is at risk. This policy chaos has real consequences. We just watched a Prime Minister get caught lying on live television. He couldn't defend his broken promises, so he lost his temper and launched personal attacks instead. The budget drops next week. Income tax thresholds will be frozen. Working people will pay more tax. The exact thing Labour called wrong 12 months ago. Government by guesswork. Policy by newspaper leak. Leadership by U-turn. Drop your thoughts below. Hit subscribe for the full budget breakdown next week. We've got the receipts. And we'll keep exposing the truth.